It's been a long week, it's been a busy week, but it's been a good darn week for music. And over the past weekend, we spoke about many great albums that came out, but there were still so many left on the table that we need to talk about 5 more of them. So without further acclaim, without further hype, here are 5 recently released heavy metal albums that you need to check out. The first one that we need to speak about this week is Valiant Thor with Old Salt. Now, this is a band that combines a little bit of southern rock with a little bit of maybe some stoner or at least some sludgy style metal. It's definitely interesting stuff. They've been going at it for quite a while, and it's a name that I think really has some respect, but it's not one that's expanded among all circles. Now, with this 13-track affair that is somewhere in the 55 to 56 minute range, you have a really good showcase of all of their collective abilities. Songs such as Little Knife and Cut and Run right at the beginning of this disc showcase some of the thick riffing that you get with some of that nice, southern style singing that you sometimes hear. Whenever you hear those words, you immediately perhaps think of, classic rock groups like the Outlaws or maybe Leonard Skinner. But Valiant Thor definitely has their own take. It's almost like a southern version of Clutch that gives it a little bit of extra punch and pomp. But it perhaps just doesn't have as much acclaim associated with the name. But as this album continues, it's one that continues that cycle and ends and concludes with De-Illumination, which is a more than 8-minute long track, which is the bonus track that I wish was actually, a part of the main album, because it's certainly a highlight. I'm always a fan of longer tracks because it typically showcases a band's ability to really, expand their horizons a little bit, and it's definitely true in this case. It's definitely not the perfect album. Valiant Thor has certainly gained more acclaim with some of their previous releases, but it's still a solid effort, and if this is your style, you should not pass this one up. Our second offering this week is Thank You Scientist with Stranger Heads Prevail. Now, these guys play a brand of progressive metal that has a lot of people talking. Their instrumentals are wild and very unique. Their vocals have a bit of a higher register to it, but overall is about the composition here. Thank You Scientists are really, by definition, just sonic travelers, explorers, people that really aim to go to different places and different levels with their music and really let the charm of their overall presentation guide the way. It's something where they do also use a lot of their skills to really showcase proficiency and also showcase virtuosity. And based around that, they have certainly gotten a following within the prog community as well as other communities just for some of their interesting compositions and some of their references. It's funny, whenever I look at this album and look at track number 8, which is entitled Rube Goldberg Variations, I immediately didn't think of Rube Goldberg. I actually thought it said Bill Goldberg Variations. But whenever you think of that, it would just be Goldberg's theme, only done in 8 minutes, and sound, nothing like the actual thing. Really dig what this band does, considering each and every one of their albums feels a little bit more unique. It's like they continue to try to expand upon what they have accomplished previously. And with this album, with songs such as A Wolf in Sheep's Clothing, Cheap Clothing, not Cheeps, that sounds like I'm trying to aim to call them all Cheeps, like from Super Mario Brothers, shows one of my other sides. Either that or the Amateur Arsonist's Handbook. You have a lot of different flowing materials that's able to really captivate you within the construct of 5 minutes all the way up to 9 minutes, which we get 9.5 out of Psychopomp. If you're looking for somebody that has a very unique sort of sound, one that's able to give you virtuosity and maybe even blend in some of those higher pitched lyrics that higher pitched vocals, should I say, that you really enjoy, and you really just want to be a bit intrepid with your exploration, Thank You Scientist is a good place for you to scope it out, so definitely check out Stranger Heads Prevail. A travesty with Dark Above, Sun Below, and this one might take a little bit of time for you to listen to and digest. It's more than 70 minutes of material, and these guys are a kind of like progressive / thrash hybrid that has, some pretty cool ideas, but there are some shortcomings on this album that do make it a challenging listen, and I'm going to just try to get to that very briefly. Now, this is an album that's length really does work against it, because whenever you are going through this, you feel like you've made a lot more progress on it than you perhaps have. For example, during my first playthrough, I felt very much like I was maybe about 6 to 7 tracks in, when in reality I had just entered into track 4, and that's where that length sort of worked against this disc. It does have some extremely good ideas that are sometimes really shortchanged and dropped by the fact that it sort of slows itself down. There are a lot of isolation moments where you hear just maybe one or two of the instruments, and or maybe just one instrument, and the voice, the vocals really try to draw you in. And I feel that this is an album also that gets a little bit better as it goes along. The first track, A Dubious Honor, which is 11 minutes in length nearly. I mean, that's a real bold idea to have that as your first taste with presentation, because this can be, typically we talk about epics with a lot of high regard during this series, and this was one that just felt like it was really lacking a lot. However, whenever you get into Memento Mori and moving into Vigilante, you get a little bit more of a concise effort from this group, and based around that, concise seems to really be a little bit of a safer bet, a better calling card for them, because they're really, putting together a more complete song as opposed to leaving a lot more empty space. That empty space is actually quite distracting. I think about Sacred Reich a little bit whenever I hear these vocals, only like a Sacred Reich cover band, somebody that really liked those efforts and was able to, really put their own spin on it, but at times it too can also, could use a little bit of work, but I also think about Mercenary a little bit, not from a musical standpoint, but based around the overall construction of this album. The fact that they were willing to really stay within some high-level minute ranges with each of their tracks, from the 5 to 8 minute range. It reminds me of some of Mercenary's later material, and just their commitment to their material. The only difference between the two is that Mercenary just felt a little bit more captivating than this. But this is also a band that I feel has a tremendous upside, because I feel like they're very young and they have a lot to offer still. They have a lot of different songwriting that they're going to improve upon. They have a lot of different charm that is going to eventually manifest itself into just, great composition. And this might just be, the beginner's bump, so to speak. So I want you guys to check this one out. I'm going to leave a link in the comments or the description box for you to check out one of their tracks, and I want you to let me know in the comments what you thought about it. Do you think this band has a tremendous upside, or do you think that this group is just going to sort of hover where they are right now? Let me know, and we'll move on. An Abstract Illusion with Illuminate the Path is our fourth exploration, and this one, oh man, this is a pleasant surprise. It really is. Didn't know much about this group, principally because these guys are relatively new. This is their first official full-length album, and man, is it magnificent. They have definitely put their best foot forward right out of the gate. Now, these guys have a very atmospheric sound to it, a little bit of atmospheric black metal that intermingles a bit with just some, a little bit of post-metal here and there, a little bit of progressive side to this group. They have some great keyboards. I think about groups such as Vesperian Sorrow, and I also think a little bit about groups such as Agalloch whenever I listen to this. And I'm thinking the earlier Agalloch lore, where you heard a little bit more of that raw side of the band as opposed to what we got with future releases such as The Mantle. This is just a group that has a lot of different sides to offer to a listener, and it is right there, right in plain view whenever you listen to Abode of a God, which is the second track after the near 3-minute introduction, Breathe, Create, Beauty. Abode of a God, being more than 9 minutes, just introduces you to their core sound, and you are wowed by this, considering that it does take you on a bit of a wavery journey, one that does have many different sides and facets to it. But then you go right into Drop This Planet of Dust, and you get this very sorrowful, very mournful track that actually can make you a bit somber and a bit reflective. And right then and there, you should understand that that emotional change that you feel within yourself means that the music is moving you and is giving you that emotional change. And that's another reason why that Agalloch reference really reigns hard for me, considering Agalloch was able to do that with so much of their material. Illuminate the Path going into Valkum. These are both songs that are more than 11 minutes in length, and really this group is starting to showcase that it has a lot to offer whenever it delves into length. And it is especially one that is showcased on track number 7, which is Skeletons of Light, which is a 16.5-minute journey that just seems to meander from one end of the spectrum to the other, really showcasing all of their collective influences and just really it's like a beacon of light on this album. You look at it and you're immediately drawn to it, and then you listen to it and you realize you're going to be even more drawn to it. They really put their best foot forward whenever it comes to their longest track. Definitely the antithesis of what you got with the previous album by Travesty. And based around this, An Abstract Illusion has a lot of potential that if enough people listen to them, if enough people give them a shot, they are going to be talked about in the next couple of years. Their next release is going to be highly anticipated, and they could break into perhaps the metal elite. Panopticon with Revisions of the Past is our final exploration for this week, and don't let the fact that this is kind of a compilation, a reworking, really fool you. This is definitely a cool little double disc bundle that actually combines together the two albums on the subject of mortality as well as social disservices. And I dig this because some of these works were ones from this group that I actually hadn't even heard. So to have this once again available in such a package is very, very cool. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Panopticon, this is a group that is able to really combine that atmospheric black metal that we spoke about a little bit with An Abstract Illusion with that post-metal, and it's more of what you sort of expect. There's a little pagan aspects in here as well. There's some raw black metal that really accompanies it. Overall, just a very, very cool theme. And you get some kind of, very preach-style vocals and lyrics out of this project. And whenever you take a listen to the On the Subject of Mortality side, you're immediately greeted with Living in the Valley of the Shadow of Death, which is an 11.5-minute long just master work that showcases all of the different things Panopticon has to offer. It does showcase that dense, layered, atmospheric blend that then is able to devolve into post-rock. And then going into songs such as Living Eulogy or To Make an Idol, man, oh man, you just get sort of this combined effort, and it's one thing to really marvel at a band that's able to shift gears like that, but Panopticon was doing this in the latter portion of the 2000s, where it was just starting to start to infuse its way a little bit into the culture, and it hadn't, this style of music hadn't really reached any sort of, seminal peak, and it wouldn't for another couple of years. So Panopticon, for all intents and purposes, is a true trailblazer of this genre. Moving on into the second half of this, the social disservices half, this is where it sort of lengthens up a little bit. Whenever you take a look at Resident, which is an 11-minute starter, and then whenever you look again at Patient, which is the 20-minute finale point, Patient is one that definitely combines these efforts with and also gives it a little bit more of a raw element. And this is the side that I think it's louder, it has a lot more sort of density to it, a lot more heaviness to it, and that weight sort of, it's something that stays with you as you listen to it. You can kind of feel that weight sort of coming around you and crashing around you. The real anger that is present on this album, on this side of the album, should I say, is a lot more focused, it's a lot more geared. There seems like there's a lot more just carnal instinct that is, really throwing itself out there. That carnage is certainly not going to stop anytime soon. It's definitely not something that is going to descend into some sort of flutteriness. Even whenever you hear a little semblance of post-rock on this side of this compilation, it's one that is handled within the song's construct and then quickly exits. So instead, this is one that focuses mightily on the heavy side, mightily on that anger, and channels it in a way that is truly unique. These guys are widely respected in the underground, and I think that if you check this out, you'll understand why and maybe want to get deeper into their catalog. They have some pretty fantastic material. Just take a look at Kentucky, for example. Damn. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. 5 recently released albums from the heavy metal world you should check out. These all came out over the first weekend of August, I guess. The 31st, the 30th, and the 29th of July. The first was Monday. This is a terrific, terrific 5-some. What are you guys excited for this week, though, for the first real official week of August? Whenever we take a look and come back and see the releases that were released on the 5th and 6th and 7th. Let me know in the comments below. I am very interested to know. My name is Cover Killer Nation. And what did you think about these albums that we talked about today? Let me know. Take care.